Greetings and welcome. We are sitting here at on site in the field because we get bored being locked in our ivory towers. And when I say we, I mean me, Steve Weissman, your host, and Ellen Pelz-Sharpe of Deep Analysis, here to deeply analyze blockchain and its role in information governance and records management. So welcome, Alan, and thanks for recommending this very cool place.
Thanks very much. Yeah, we're here at the Union Coffee Roasters in Air, giving them a good shout out. Very nice people and a great place for actually for the local tech community. It's just an interesting thing, I think, for both of us in the Boston area, how this area has exploded in the last 10 years, 15, whatever. So, yep.
And I have to say, it is one of my favorite places because it's fun just to say you're going to Air Mass. Just people who are not from around here have no idea what you're talking about.
It's true.
At any rate, let's get right to the subject here. The subject being blockchain. It's like the weather. You hear people talk about it a lot of the time. Nobody seems to be doing anything about it. And then lo and behold, we discover all the pieces are in place, as you and I have written about recently. Tell us, if you would, in sort of layman's terms, what is blockchain and how does it work and why do we care?
Well, it'll have to be in layman's terms. It's a very complicated set of technologies, and I've been really fortunate to actually, have some deep dives from people who really know what they're talking about. But I think it is all about that layman's terms. So, if you've heard of blockchain at all, then it's almost certainly in connection with Bitcoin, the currency favored by drug dealers around the world. And yet, actually, for me, it started maybe 2-3 years ago when I was at 451 Research. Anyway, long story short, I took a briefing from a Canadian collaboration firm who said that they were doing collaboration using blockchain. And I just thought, well, that's weird. Let's have a listen. And the light went on for me that, so this is much more. Blockchain is an application that can be used for financial services, but at the end of the day, it's immutable, a new word for me, if not for you, an immutable distributed ledger that has many applications. And I think we both came to this the same way. We had ideas that, well, hold on, isn't this relevant to our world of information management governance? And then, et voila, we find out that we're not the first to have thought of it, that there are startups out there already exploring this.
Mostly those of us who have heard about it and have for the last recent past heard about it in a financial context. The whole Bitcoin as a virtual currency has captured the imagination, at least in certain pockets of the world. And you and I sort of took different paths to discovering blockchain and having the same realization that its immutability, use the word 10 times and it's yours for life, really adds an extra dimension to managing information and securing it and guaranteeing its integrity. As we have written about, one of the real big surprises to me, honestly, was finding out how much of that infrastructure is actually already in place. And we don't really hear about it much in this context at all. And it's not like there are applications going to roll off the assembly line in the next 2 weeks. But those with vision about these sorts of things are working in this direction. Because really, when you think about it, even in a financial context, we're really just tracking information that just happens to be decimal based with a $sign in front, or a euro symbol, or whatever it happens to be. Can you talk a little bit about the transformative role that you see as blockchain begins to peek over the horizon, and maybe share some of the examples that you've learned about?
Yeah, absolutely. It raises so many interesting questions, and I think our industry's been talking a lot recently about the death of ECM or whatever. But the fact is, we've been managing information the same way for 20, 30 years. And one of the biggest obstacles we've always had is this is a file, this is a paper record, this is a physical object. This file is a Word document. This one is a PDF. It really matters, right? So imagine if it didn't matter. Imagine if it didn't matter what kind of file it was. It didn't matter whether it was physical or electronic or virtual in any way, shape, or form. So that's one thing. It gives us the opportunity to sort of rethink information management, which, I think is pretty cool. But I think also the fact is, as you said, I'll be the devil's advocate. It's not like you said. It's not like applications are going to come to market in the next 2 weeks. Well, no, they're not. But applications exist today. There are startups out there who have built these applications. They've run them through proof of concepts. They're real. And the blockchain itself, that sort of layers, multiple layers, but layer of technology is very well proven. So, I mean, this isn't future, maybe it will work, maybe it won't. It works. So the opportunity is for me to grab hold of it. And your last question, I think, was, are there examples of this? And the answer is yes, there are. By the way, I didn't know it was going to be this noisy. There are examples. So, I mean, you have people out there who are working with blockchain to track documents and records. There are people tracking shipping containers. There are people tracking works of art. There are people tracking legal evidence. These applications exist today. Just Google, you'll find them yourself. So what links them all together, though, is that chain of custody, right? These people, be it people who are pushing shipping containers around the world, or traditional records managers, or art dealers, they need a chain of custody. They need a record that is unimpeachable. It's absolutely, that's how it was. Somebody's fiddled with it, we'll know about it. That unites them. And I think, for me at least, at an intellectual level, if I can call it that, that's where we get to rethink information management. Because that's what we've been trying to do from day one. And it's really hard. It's really, really hard. And out of left field comes the technology that says, I can do that. So it exists. The opportunity is there for people to jump on it.
When you and I spoke, we've been speaking a lot over the last few weeks on this very subject, trying to kind of peel back the layers a bit in this context. And as you, I've been having conversations, around our profession about this sort of thing. One thought that was presented to me was, okay, that's all about spoliation. When you come right down to it, being able to make it tamper-proof or be able to prove easily that it has been tampered with if there's reason to suspect so. Clearly that's important. Behind the question, though, I had this sense of, okay, but what else does it do? Okay. Is that enough? That immutability, that chain of custody, given that it's new, given that it can be costly, what's that argument look like?
Well, fortunately, I don't know this person. It doesn't look like much of an argument. I mean, to be harsh about it, a search engine just searches. A scanner just captures images. I mean, yeah, it does one thing really, really well. That's awesome. Because that one thing that it does really, really well is arguably the biggest challenge we've had over 30 years. So it fixes one thing brilliantly. So I don't have a problem with that. Has it got more things to go for it? Maybe, I don't know. But just the spoliation thing and the chain of custody alone is revolutionary. As for the cost thing, I'm going to be honest, I came to it with that same sort of, this cost thing. But those cost challenges are really based on analysis around Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. Lots of transactions happening all of the time, right? And somebody's peeling off a bit of a penny every time. Well, how often does a record change? Once. It's not really supposed to change at all, actually. But you know what I mean? So the volume of transactions is minimal in comparison to Bitcoin. And from what I'm hearing, there isn't a cost challenge. I mean, where your cost might come in is if you're going to develop an application, you have to hire Bitcoin and blockchain experts, so there's going to be cost there. But the actual running costs, as far as I'm aware, it's a misnomer. That's not a problem.
So part of my challenge with conversations like this, and this probably won't last long, is I'm trying to ask the questions and approach it sort of dispassionately, when in point of fact, I don't know how much longer I can do that without revealing my true colors, which is to say, I agree with you, rather than just take the neutral, oh, now we'll have to get the other 47 scientists in the room. Because it strikes me that what we're talking about is a new architectural layer that
Exactly.
you would treat the way you would treat any other architectural layer. You can host it yourself, or perhaps there are cloud providers out there or that will arise to handle that transaction. And it's very much the same cost-benefit value analysis that you would apply to any such application. You know, is it transaction-based? Is it document-based? You know, volume? In which case, we can apply some of the same mental filters and go through the same mental gymnastics about it that we're accustomed to, if we can kind of come in off the ledge of doubt about, oh, it's all Bitcoin, oh, it's all expensive. Really, we're just talking about a way to tag and lock pieces of information and the records of what happens to that information. So just as a quick overview, and I certainly won't do it justice, but the notion of blockchain in a records environment is that every time something changes, there would be a new link in the chain, if you will, that gets permanently affixed to the original, time and date stamped and glued and all the rest of the stuff. So that anytime anything happens, you're not really changing anything, you're just appending a new link to the chain of custody. And to me, that's ultimately its power, that and the fact that it is or can be distributed, can be run peer-to-peer, doesn't have to be centralized. And there are pros and cons to that too, just as there is with any other sort of application that lends itself to those choices. Care to share any thoughts in that regard, or is it too early to sort of talk about those it depends?
Well, no, I mean, I think you summed it up well. I mean, historically in our industry, we were fixated on the repository, right? So this essentially is that same argument, right? But taken to another level, really. I mean, it's a big discussion and probably one we can't get into too much here. But the fact is, there is a public blockchain, that does exist, the Bitcoin blockchain. IBM would argue that they have one that's even better. So there is forking of the blockchain. You could be on-premise, arguably, I guess, but it's peer-to-peer, so it would obviously be some kind of hybrid. You're right, there's a lot of implementation discussions that need to happen. And I think also, just to be clear, although I'm saying these things exist now and could happen now, the one thing I've learned being an analyst over the last 20 years is nothing happens now. It takes a long time, and this will take a long time. It's not going to disrupt the entire industry overnight. That's not the case. But it is going to be disruptive, just as artificial intelligence is coming in and disrupting things in ways we didn't expect, in ways that many people don't even realize, right? So, I mean, just AI in search and capture, for example, and BPM, it's just getting in there and it's happening. I think the same thing will happen with blockchain. I think if I was thinking about it from an employment standpoint, if I was a records manager, I'd really want to be all over this. Because this could be my future. This could really, sorry, records manager, this could pull me out of the basement. This could really do something for my world. This is cool. And I think if it was from a technology standpoint, this is a great world for startups. Blockchain in healthcare, blockchain in manufacturing, blockchain in oil and gas, anything that is highly regulated and you need that chain of custody. Tons of opportunities waiting, but it'll take time. Always does.